Hey guys, so for Natural Disaster Week, we either got the chance to talk about one of the natural disaster movies that we really liked, or we could go around our neighborhood and show people some of the history of the natural disasters that have occurred in our area. Some of them tend to be pretty small, and others tend to be a little more on the historical side, so be aware. Don't be afraid, and hope you guys enjoy this video. Now, one of my favorite movies when it comes to natural disasters is The Day After Tomorrow. You got Jake Gyllenhaal here in New York trying to run to the library. Yeah, one of the most famous scenes is right over here where they're running to the library and the majority of them escape right there. It's pretty intense, but it's cool. But it's also really good to note that when you see all these scenes, a lot of this stuff is not real at all. The movie revolves around Dennis Quaid and his son trying to survive this climate change that's going on, and it creates a huge ice age, all because of the Atlantic currents that are going on. What happens is that there are ice caps basically melting all the way over here and changing the temperatures around the North and South Atlantic current area, and because of this they get very outlandish and crazy weather patterns. Now, as I mentioned before, this is a very unrealistic representation of what would happen if climate change were to occur. It wouldn't be so rapid, but it has occurred to some degree. For example, we got the tornadoes here in Los Angeles. We got New York completely on ice over here. We have also, as I mentioned before, that tsunami that happened. And then here's one of the crazier ones. You see the Statue of Liberty under a huge current of water. That realistically would not happen. Now, between 2004 and 2020, turns out that the climatologists did find out that some of the stuff that happened in the movie was true, like the weakening of the currents, which is pretty much what created all those weather patterns. But they did state that it's definitely to a lesser degree. Yeah. And once again, I'm going to point out this little scene right over here that you see in Los Angeles. There are a bunch of different kinds of tornadoes. Now, if this were happening in Tornado Alley around the middle of America, this would be pretty common. But around Los Angeles, we've only had a very small few. In California, you see on average a total of 6 different tornadoes a year. This one here happened in Ventura County. As you can see, it really isn't that big and didn't do that much damage. But a good amount of them tend to happen in North California. This is one of the small tornadoes that also happened in Davis right over here. This one was filmed by a guy who was going down the road. It's a pretty cool one. I'll make sure to leave a little link down below to show you. But don't be afraid, guys. A lot of this happens around areas where people aren't even around, so you're good. Anyways, that's pretty much all I've got for the day after tomorrow. Hope you enjoy the rest of the video.
Hey everyone, I hope that you'll join me today as I talk about natural disasters in Big Sur, which is located in Monterey Bay. This gorgeous region is susceptible to landslides, earthquakes, mudslides, and floods. It's located right by the ocean and up in the mountains. Today I'm coming to you from Big Sur, California, which is in Monterey Bay. I chose this spot because Monterey Bay, although it has a past where natural disasters have affected the community before, Monterey Bay continues to be a place where other Californians from Southern California and Central California often come to seek refuge when their neighborhoods are affected by natural disasters. So really quick, back in 2017, in the month of February, up until that point, California was experiencing a very bad drought. Big Sur was hit with very, very heavy rains. And what happened was all that heavy rain made the slopey hills very, very steep. The heavy rain saturated it so much with water that a huge bridge collapsed. The dirt, the roads, it just all became too soggy, and that caused a mudslide to happen. So when that happened, the highway closed and people couldn't go in and out of Big Sur. However, on the bright side, the whole community poured all their resources and efforts to make sure that Big Sur would be open again. And yeah, they've successfully recovered from those natural disasters. And as I've mentioned, Big Sur, Monterey Bay, these places continue to be a safe haven for a lot of other Californians who live in areas where natural disasters such as fires, wildfires, affect their communities. Last year when I lived in Monterey, a lot of people from Los Angeles, a lot of people from Central California, they all came up here. Even in San Francisco, a lot of people were trying to escape the fires that were happening near San Francisco, and so everyone was coming to Big Sur, Monterey Bay to get away from the fire. And at that time, a lot of people were also wearing masks because breathing in the air when natural disasters occur is dangerous. There could be debris in the air, it's too ashy, the air quality is bad, and so this was just a really nice place for everyone to come together. Even though a bridge collapsed back in 2017 due to a mudslide, the Bixby Bridge still stands 87 years strong to this day, and it's absolutely gorgeous. And I want to conclude this video by showing you where a landslide or mudslide could occur. So here is a steep hill that's primarily dirt, and when wet enough, it can cause things to collapse and roll down. As always, thank you so much for joining me on my very special community walk. Until next time, bye.
Hey guys, it is Natural Disaster Week, and I wanted to share a movie that I was interested in because it is about something that I grew up hearing about. It's called San Andreas, and it's about the San Andreas Fault Line. It runs through 800 miles of California, right down the middle of it. So a lot of our earthquakes are because of this fault line. But in the movie, there's a few things that aren't quite right. So I wanted to tell you about those. The first one is right at the very beginning, they have a piece of technology that tells them an earthquake is right about to happen. And that doesn't exist. That's not even close to existing. Scientists don't think they're going to be able to make something like that. We can estimate when we think an earthquake will happen, but there's no piece of technology that can tell you, oh, it'll happen 5 minutes from now, right here.
And it is interesting that you said that because there is an app that can show you where an earthquake has happened, and I'm going to show you right now.
And another part that definitely could never happen is the fault line triggering a tsunami, because there's a bunch of earthquakes and then there's a massive tsunami. So if you watch the movie, just know that it would never be as bad as it is in the movie. It's sensationalized to make it a better movie. Anyway, if you guys do enjoy watching movies like that, just keep in mind it's not as bad as the movie is. And all we can do here, because we don't usually get earthquakes that are quite that big, we have smaller ones that we can feel, but no one really gets hurt. So just stay safe, and that's what you can do. Follow the earthquake guidelines, stay inside, get next to something big and heavy that can't fall over, like a bed is actually really good. You can sit right next to the bed and things will fall like that. And then you'd be right here, so you'd be protected. So don't worry too much about it.
Hey guys, it's Jocelyn and I'm walking along Aliso Creek, a little trail. And I just wanted to stop by and kind of elaborate what Robert was saying when he was showing the bridges. So, this is our little creek, and when it rains, it will fill up. And what happens when it fills up too much? It kind of becomes like this giant, almost river looking thing instead of this tiny little creek that it usually is. And there are times when it rains so much that you can still see the water lines because it took so long. So you can barely see one of the water lines from down there. There's my finger. There we go. Right around there. And I know a little bit up there too. I can't tell if that's just a water line, but it might be. I know last year in like January, it was a very rainy season, and this little canal filled up a whole lot. And there you go. Now, rain and flooding can affect a lot of things. One of these things is the little range right here. And when it rains, as you can see, it's kind of shaped like a bowl. So this little place fills up with water and it becomes like a small little, well, not really small, but a large pond. But it's currently dry season, so it's not too, grassy or anything. It's pretty dried out, but that just means that it's ready for the next rain season. And these things dry up from time to time. It takes a little while, especially because concrete's not too porous and there's not a lot of places for the water to go. As you can see, it's kind of happening here, where it just starts to pool up and slow down, while like the rest of this is faster. That's, you could probably call that a little bit of flooding, but it's not doing anything, and it's still flowing on the other side, so we wouldn't call that flooding. It's just a natural thing that any kind of body of water does. But everything floods every once in a while. It's not too bad usually, although for the golf course it does interrupt the golfing game. But these things kind of happen. So we've walked all the way and we've met further up where this creek kind of starts its concrete, and over here it's completely dirt. Now over here, I would like to call this like a little example of a mini dam, and that is because we have this small little bigger pool of water. It still has a current, but not that strong, and this allows a lot of creatures to live here. Now, what I meant by creatures is mainly ducks. You can see one mama duck with its little baby duck, and the nice things about these little flooded, because these were kind of purposefully made, these little places allow a safe place for things to grow, things to live and thrive, like these little ducks. If this was like a raging river, these ducks would have a hard time learning how to swim. See, this is another part of the creek where water just kind of flows everywhere, and some of it eventually gets to where the creek is, while some of it doesn't, and it gets to stay still. And you can see here, it's like a little ducky paradise. We got plenty of food here and plenty of shade, and they love it here. So that's the little duck paradise I showed you over there. Not a lot of water comes from it. So that's honestly just its own pool of water that was created by some rain floods. Over here is where most of the water comes from, closer to my trail. And you can see the water flows faster and it goes all the way down, filling most of this little patch of the creek. Now, as you can see, there's plenty of greenery here, and you can also tell that side is where the water is at, considering how many trees and stuff over here is. Over here we have kind of like these thinner, dry loving plants. And as you can see down here, right over there, there used to be a big water current that came through here. But, water evaporates. But during one of the heavy rains, it flooded through and it carved its own path and went down through there. And it fed into there. But for now, it's dried up, waiting for the water to come back the next rainy season. Another example. The ground I'm walking on is like these hard pebblies, really hard dirt. No fun. Nothing grows up here. But back here, there was some flooding. And you can tell because over there, that is sand. And that sand's kind of like the beach. It's very fine. And there's not really sand. It's kind of dirt and dust. Not exactly white sand. But during some of the flooding, it brought over some sand, and that's what we mean about deposits. And over here it has deposited a lot of that sand and a lot of that nutrients, and since there's a lot of nutrients, you can see a lot of greenery still is happening here despite there being a lack of water. Now, it's because of these heavy rains that brings us these little pockets of water and these pockets of life just this little bit of pocket of water is bringing up this much greenery, which I think is kind of amazing. But we appreciate these things, and we can only really get these with these random seasonal floods. And you know, it's not always a bad thing. It brings us this life at this creek over here. But you know, it's not too much to say that, you know, we live in city and a lot of concrete, and concrete doesn't do the same thing as, you know, dirt and grass. So we will appreciate these any time of year, especially the rainy times, or else we wouldn't really have this nice greenery. It would just become mush all the time. Anyways, thank you for joining me on this little walk, guys. Hope you had fun. Hope you guys learned quite a bit. And I'll talk to you guys later.